We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Infinite Gary. When looking at pre- and post-calibration results, we often see graphs for grayscale that show the delta E errors, and also show red, green, and blue as horizontal lines. Gary understands that getting the delta E all below 3 is the goal, and that it's supposed to be imperceptible to the human eye. But even with very good numbers, the horizontal red, green, and blue lines never perfectly overlap. So why not? And what would it take, or what is the limitation in current displays that prevents them from having no error at all?
Well, now this is worrying about something you don't need to worry about. But we get it. We're totally geeky. We understand where this is coming from. But yeah, Gary does understand. It's like, this isn't actually going to be perceptible to your eye.
Right.
So we're not super worried about it. But why? Yeah, fair enough.
So in the end, when we look at these these are just slight variations and imperfections in the color reproduction. And I mean, this is from my perspective, it's all hardware. There's only so perfect it can be. There's just so many little imperceptible, they are imperceptible, but it's uncontrollable variables that we are, not every single pixel is exactly the right perfect thing every single time, not putting out the exact amount of light it's supposed to, and it's maybe decaying slightly slow, faster than something else. This just, what's it going to take? Perfection, and we don't have that, so it's never going to happen.
So I mean, a great example. Vincent Teo put up a video where he got to bring into his own house one of the Sony BVM reference studio monitors. It's an OLED display. It's 30 inches diagonal, so it's pretty small, and it costs $30,000. Okay, and it has these little teeny pot dials on the front to adjust the colors very, very precisely. And if you're actually using it in a studio, you're required to recalibrate it every week. That's one of the requirements for creating. So if you want perfection in the colors, that's what it costs. That's how small the screen is, and that's how often you have to calibrate it, which is not a user-friendly thing.
I wonder I wonder if those lines absolutely overlap, though.
Yeah, even then, right? Yeah. So I mean,
I would like to see that graph before I believe it.
Given what Vincent Teo measured and what he showed, he's like, I've never seen it this perfect, and I believe him. He's a professional calibrator. And there's a reason why, it's that small and it costs that much, and it has to be recalibrated that frequently. Yeah. So I mean, the example that Gary showed, and this was from a projector, and this was pre and post calibration that we're showing in the video. And it's like, originally it was like in the low end too much red, in the high end not enough red,
right.
And post calibration pretty evened out. But yes, the red, green, and blue lines do not perfectly overlap, and we see that the delta E errors are all below 2 in this case. So that's a very successful calibration. But those lines aren't perfectly overlapping. Now, part of that is the adjustment capability of the display, because they're using the user level controls. And we actually mentioned this last week when Gary asked about lookup tables. But in a normal consumer display, you'll have maybe a 2-point or at most a 20-point. A lot have a 10-point adjustment of the colors, which means that you can only adjust, essentially add an offset to the color at, say, 10 or 20 different points along a signal that can have as many as 1,024 values.
Right.
So by going to a full lookup table where you can adjust every single one of those 1,024 values individually, you could get closer. You could get closer to having all of those lines completely overlap, but it wouldn't last for more than a week, just like the professional display doesn't. So that's an awful lot of work for something that quite literally is not even perceptible to your eye.
Right.
So, but fair enough to ask on the technical side.
But if you want to get like a welder's helmet and strap this thing to the front of it, to take off the mask and strap this thing to the front of it, you'll get that nice field of view, and it'll be absolutely perfect. Now, you'll have to sit very still in your room so the sound lines up, and you'll somehow have to figure out how to make that an acoustically transparent display. That might be a challenge. want your question answered, send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.